Tuesday night, and that means another episode of Goal Horns and Fight Songs. And uh, once again, we finally actually got a full slate of NCHC games, which is nice to see.
Yeah, right before break, we're closing out the first half of the season strong. Um, I think a lot of the series kind of went the way we were expecting to. Um, we knew the Denver Western series was going to be kind of the series to watch. Some excitement out west, though, as Colorado College and North Dakota had two overtime games, and maybe a little bit surprising that Colorado College actually took both wins out there and 4 out of 6 points from the Fighting Hawks.
Yeah, and even there's just something about my Bulldogs play in Miami that we decide to play them tight. I don't know why, even without Person there. We had to go to I think we had to go to a shootout. I was not able to watch any of that as I was out at a wedding, or any of the games. But uh, there's just something about Miami when we play them that we struggle with them, even if they are a bottom feeder.
Yeah, no shootout Friday night. A great one-handed goal from Steve's to seal the game up on Friday night, um, and really, put the show that the conference is closer than schedules or records will show, or even rankings. I mean, we know that Miami struggled their 0-7-1 in conference, but they played two extremely tough games, and they're not trying to sit there and lose. Like, they're putting the effort in. They just happen to be on the bad end of a lot of breaks, or their talent's just not quite up to the same level as the rest of the conference, and it's really unfortunate for the guys who spent time down there and have worked hard to get to that level.
Yeah, I think for the most part, it's not for a lack of effort. It's just not quite that top tier talent because the top tier talent is getting sniped by in the Midwest, North Dakota, um, UMD, St. Cloud, Minnesota, and then you have Boston College and BU out east. Western Michigan is in there as well, and they've moved themselves up into that tier of sniping the top tier talent within the last few years. So it's
And
tough,
then
but
then
yeah,
you got the Big Ten schools. Say what you want about the conference, but they still do get high level talent. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, all pretty close to Miami. Like, it's hard for Miami to draw in players, and when you've been struggling the way they have, you see kind of more of that talent pull out either through the transfer portal when they've been there a while, like Person and Savage have. Even Joe Cassetti coming, to Western Michigan after spending time in Miami, or just decommitting and reopening their commitment to somewhere else and ending up playing at a different school. So I mean, they're on a tough break. Again, I think that coach has to be on the hot seat at this point. They're giving up too many goals. They haven't won. I think literally, if you have his combined conference record, like, he's barely broken 10 wins total over the 4 or 5 years that he's been there. If he's broken 10 wins yet.
I mean,
Um,
just even the past 2 years total, not even including or well, including non-conference, I don't think he's broken 10 wins.
he's broken 10 wins total. He's got five. They're 5-9
Well,
and two this
I
year.
yeah, I'm just saying the previous 2 years he hadn't even broken 10 wins in those 2 years, and that's including their non-conference.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely close. But I mean, even your bread and butter is your conference, and they're struggling mightily in the conference. Uh, and it's only going to get tougher with now a new team coming in. They might be a team that, for whatever reason, decides that they like that play-in game, and they might be playing in it quite a bit if they don't get things turned around here pretty quickly.
Yeah, they need to get it turned around. And then Omaha kind of did Omaha things this week. Uh, They were just based off the scores. They did split, but I mean, it's you never know which team you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean they play well in the conference. Everybody's pretty close. They're sitting down in seventh right now at 3-4-1. They have 2 overtime wins. They're tied with Minnesota Duluth with 9 points. They each have 9 points. Um, but I mean, they're this anomaly. Like they play, you never know where they're gonna sit until we get to about this point in the season. Once they start playing conference games,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing that we see every year with the NCHC is the conference can make or break you. I mean, right now there are, was it 5 teams that are currently ranked. Um, Colorado College, I think, sneaking in at 20. Denver, Western, North Dakota, and St. Cloud all ranked. And really, in the standings, St. Cloud is the top dog in the conference at 7-0-1, but they're currently sitting behind Western in the rankings at, I think, 13 or 14, and Western's at 12. Uh, North
Yeah, they're at 14. North Dakota's at 4. Western's at 12.
Denver's at 5, 6, 5. They're at 5.
5. Yep.
And they're currently sitting fourth in the conference. Uh, 9 points separates first place and fourth place in the conference. And 9 points seems like a lot, but that's really 2 good weekends and you're right back in the hunt. One team kind of hits, if St. Cloud hits any kind of hiccup, North Dakota, Western, and Denver are going to be right back on their heels if they play a couple good weekends, at least one good weekend to, get back within a game or so.
And especially if they play St. Cloud and they're able to sweep that weekend, uh, boom, that's a 6 point turnaround and goes from 9, all of a sudden it's 3.
Yeah. So still a very close, and we still have 2/3 of conference games left in the second half of the season. So we're not even really close to having the Penrose Cup figured out, and we really never are with this conference. It's always a last weekend thing that they have to fight for and work towards and try and determine a winner of, which is kind of one of the fun things about the conference when you really think about it, is that nothing's ever determined until the last weekend. Like we get the full experience of watching college hockey.
Yeah, and that definitely does make it a lot of fun. It's not eh, the conference play is uh, in a sense more fun than the big tournament because it's teams fighting for position and then seeing where they're going to be, and the the regular season grind proves where they should be, and what teams they're going to play. And even the first, well, I mean, the whole NCHC tournament in general is fun because look at last year what Colorado College did. They they were the 7 seed. They end up winning their first round series, and then they win their semifinal matchup. And you don't get that in a lot of conferences. And that we were just talking about this, um, how close the conference actually is, and how tight it can be throughout the conference schedule, pretty much 1 through 8. Even though Miami is kind of they're the bottom feeder, they're still competitive.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like there's no easy weekends or off weekends or any of that kind of uh, stuff. You have to play all 24 of your conference games. Let's see. Let's look.
Um,
I think we kind of went through the standings, but we'll go through them here at the midway point of the season. St. Cloud State, a firm grasp at number 1, earning 22 points through the first 8 conference game, a conference record of 7-0-1. North Dakota sitting number 2, which is a little bit of a surprise. I think we didn't necessarily have them that high. I had St. Cloud in the top, so it's really not as big of a surprise that they're sitting up there at number one. I think maybe the fact that they're undefeated in regulation is a little bit of a surprise, but not really considering the talent we knew that team possessed, and they are the defending conference tournament champions. North Dakota at 2 with 18 points, a conference record of 5-3. Western Michigan sitting at 14 points with a conference record of 4-4. Two of those losses being overtime losses. They only have 2 regulation losses on the season, both of those being to the number 1 team in the conference of St. Cloud State. Denver just 1 point behind with 13, a conference record of 5-3. 2 of those being overtime winners. Colorado College right there at number 5, which is about where I had them pre-season ranking wise, with 10 points, also a record of 4-4. They have 2 overtime wins. Duluth with 9 points, a conference record of 5-2-1, 1 overtime loss, 1 shootout win. Omaha also with 9 points, a record of 3-4-1, 2 overtime wins, and a shootout win. And then Miami with 1 point that they earned against your Bulldogs with the game going to the shootout on Friday. But they are 0-7-1 with 0 overtime wins, 0 overtime losses, and 0 shootout wins. And that's where we stack up.
I think based off our early season predictions, we're fairly close. I mean, Miami, we were spot on. But I think you were closer on
Omaha and North Dakota are my outliers, really.
I'm sorry?
Right now, Omaha and North Dakota are my outliers. They're in kind of opposite positions. I had really Western 1, St. Cloud 2, I think. And then I think it was Denver, Colorado, Omaha, North Dakota, Miami, I think.
I'm trying to figure if I actually wrote that down.
I wrote it down somewhere, but I've gotten rid of it since then because I don't necessarily keep all of my notes.
Well, I have at least my notes. I had Western 1, St. Cloud 2, Denver 3, UMD 4, Colorado College 5, North Dakota 6, Omaha 7, and Miami 8. So, I mean, my top 3 are fairly close. Just UMD is an outlier, and so is North Dakota.
No, I mean, not bad. We're pretty much we're riding the wave of correctness. We're within the ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
Within the seating section. I think really there's not a whole lot to talk about. There were some big scoring games. I think, the Western Denver games were something everybody was looking forward to. You had numerous guys in the top 10 as far as points per game goes, as far as goal scoring total goes. It was definitely going to be the offensive, or it turned out to be the offensive play that we thought it was. And Friday, both games really came down to special teams. Friday, it was Western Michigan, I think, going 3. Did they go 3 for 3 on the power play? Double check because I need that back up anyway. They had 4 third period goals, including 2 empty netters, to seal a 7-3 win. But I believe it was 3 for 3 on the power play, so that really got them in a good spot. Denver was 1 for 2 on Friday night, so Western did a really good job of minimizing extra skater opportunities for Denver, and when they did, their defense played pretty solid. They did get the one early in the first period, and that led to them, jumping out to a lead. But Western came right back, and there wasn't really anything Denver did that Western didn't have an answer to. Denver scored the first goal. Western came back with two in the first period. Denver scored first in the second period. Western came right back and restored the 2-goal lead. I believe they scored first in the third period, and Western rattled off 4 straight goals, 2 being empty netters. Sam Colangelo gets his first NCHC hat trick, his second hat trick on the season. And
I hate you guys for your goal scorers.
Dude, I don't know,
I
man.
don't hate Sam though, because Sam is a great dude. He joined us.
I
Great
don't.
kid.
There is something in the water in Kalamazoo at Western Michigan, because the ability that this coaching staff has done the last 3 years is absolutely ridiculous. And it's guys,
Unbelievable.
they have gotten the most out of guys that are buying into the system and that are staying. And guys want to come here and get better. Like, these are things that have been proven. This is the third year in a row that Western has had a ridiculously scoring top line. It's the third year in a row that they're getting production from top to bottom of their roster, because they won't necessarily say who or what is their top line. And you see that, really. I mean, it's right now Western is tied for fourth in scoring offense, once again scoring 4 goals a game. Number 1 is Denver, scoring 5.2 goals, 2 goals a game, and Western kind of kept them in check night 1, but they got a little squirrely in night 2 and put up 6 on them.
Yeah.
Where is it?
But I mean, it averages out to, I mean, about 5 goals a game.
Well,
It was
4 goals a game, because they scored 8 total goals on the weekend. 4 goals a game, so we held them below their average. Western scored 11 goals a game, so we were actually playing above our average. Right now, the Massimo Rizzo is the top points per game getter with 172. Luke Granger is number 4. Jack Devine from Denver is 5. Dylan Went from Western Michigan is tied for 7th. Zev Byam is sitting at 9th, or at 10th. Ethan Phillips is tied for 23rd. Sam Colangelo is at 26, and all of those guys are above 1 point per game. If we go by points, the top 2 are Massimo Rizzo and Jack Devine. Luke Granger is sitting at 25 points, tied with Zev Byam, Dylan Went from Western Michigan, Carter King from Denver sitting at 23 points. Like, this was an offense versus offense matchup, and we got everything we wanted out of it. Even if you look at straight goals, Jack Devine got 15. Dylan Went of Western Michigan, 13. Sam Colangelo of Western Michigan, 11. Like, offense for days between both of these teams.
And I think Devine is either last weekend or 2 weekends ago. I can't quite remember. But going into it, it was like the Friday game. He was the leading scorer in the nation.
Yeah, and he still is.
Yeah, it's, as a goaltender, you're probably like, well, my stats are not going to look very good after this weekend. And that's on both sides, because they're so offensively talented. And it's not to say that the defense is bad. It's just there are so many skilled offensive players on both sides that it's like, well, I'm going to do the best that I can, and I hope it's good enough.
Yeah, and I mean, Cam played great both nights. Yeah, a 6-5 game is not what you want, but there were some interesting moments in the Saturday game, one of which we're going to really look at here in depth in a moment. We're not going to talk about the upcoming games. We'll do that in a couple weeks, as they're so far away.
Yeah, there's nothing to look forward to, at least for the next 2 weeks.
So we'll hit up the players of the week, and then we'll do a deep dive into one of the moments that kind of deflated the Western Michigan effort, but not too much, because they still came back and played extremely hard, and honestly fought to stay close in the game and to earn at least 1 point and give themselves an opportunity for two, even though it went the way of Denver in the end on kind of an unfortunate bounce if you're Cam Rowan and Sam Colangelo. But players of the week, a couple Broncos making their appearances here. Sam Colangelo, who did have the hat trick in Friday's game, his second appearance on the player of the week line. Defenseman Sam Sodland, also of Western Michigan, he picked up his first goal in the Saturday game at one point, tying, I believe, tied the game at 4 apiece. Rookie of the week is Miko Makita, who I believe has made an appearance on this list at least once before, and a kind of a staple of last year's goaltender of the week rankings. Caden Mberko is the goaltender of the week for his performance in Grand Forks, giving Colorado College their first sweep in North Dakota in a long, long time, and also getting the Tigers ranked for, I believe, the first time in 11 years, I believe was the statistic I saw on that one.
That seems about right.
Them coming in at number 20 this week.
Because they were still good when I was in college, and then they went downhill. But there are certain times, a lot of the time, we disagree, especially with goaltender of the week. But I think Mberko earned it this week, especially defeating North Dakota, getting the sweep over North Dakota. Even though one was overtime, I mean, they're still the number
both
4
games
ranked team in the
games.
country. Oh, well,
and
both overtime games.
And North Dakota was the number 1 team in the country at the time. So
yeah,
I have no
that
issues
one I can't really
with the selections this time,
which is rare on this show.
It's okay. I have other complaints about things that of the NCHC, mostly their reffing, but
well, don't we all?
That leads us into our next topic. So first, let's look at do this. Come on, let me do what I need to do here. That goes to you, and then I come over here and I go here too. Right. So everybody should see on their screen the list of penalties that were accumulated at the end of the first period at 18:55. We have 3 roughings on Denver, a goaltender interference on Western Michigan, a face masking penalty, a game misconduct, a roughing, a second misconduct on Western Michigan. Those are the penalties as they call them. Now, let's take a look at the play and see if we can find, who's that guy back there? What's he doing? Oh, he's celebrating a goal. It's me.
He looks like an idiot.
He probably is. I hear he has a lot of fun at hockey games, though. So we'll jump back here to the actual play. Well, this is when they're sitting, still trying to sort out who's in the box when. Okay. So first, we'll see the goaltender interference. That's pretty obvious.
Yeah,
I don't think we can.
That's a good call.
We can say this was a bad call. Now, is the reaction from Denver warranted? It was a little soft of a goalie contact. Let's be real.
It wasn't like he absolutely didn't.
There was less contact in this event than there was in the tripping
Lindenwood
last week in Lindenwood. Yes. So Barons and Webster come over, give Granger a good working over. Clearly, those are both roughings. Now, this last little push here, it definitely looked more like a punch depending on where you were in the arena, but it's clearly a push. Had it stopped there, it should be 2 roughings for Denver and a goaltender interference for Western. That is not where it ends at all.
No.
In comes flying in Went. In comes Hillebrand. Ooh, I definitely did not mean to do that. No. Here's some scuffle at high speed. There's everybody flying in everywhere. Dude, this took a minute to sort out. Okay. Back 10 seconds. So there's Hillebrand. And I want you to keep an eye on Hillebrand here. And watch what happens from number 8. Look at that stick. And number 8 only gets a roughing there. This one I'm a little suspect on, okay? Because I think there could have been some other things called, especially with the amount of time that this was reviewed, and then it was challenged by Western for a possible major on Denver. That was one where I think they could have gotten away with calling a major on number 8. He reaches back in and grabs Hillebrand. They start scuffling. Hillebrand's already kind of got a piece of Rizzo's face mask. That is clearly face masking. There is no argument which way or the other on that one. He grabbed, twisted, and pulled that sucker off. Okay?
Yeah.
So we've clearly seen... Where's my other thing? Where'd it go? Where'd you go? Where'd you go, you stupid little thing? Is that it? There it is. Okay. So what have we clearly seen? We've seen the 2 roughings.
Yep.
This roughing, again, I think they could have called something more here. And I have the rule book up. We can take a look at a couple of things I think it could have been. The goaltender interference, while soft, I will give it to you because they called the one last week on Washi.
It is, but and
I think that was more of a call to try and get the game under control and set a precedent that stop being that close to goaltenders.
This one, to quote you, this goalie's happy ass was in his crease.
100%. Luke Granger goes into the happy place of the goalie, the no-fly zone if you're a player, and proceeds to try and teabag him, for lack of a better term, because his nuts are all up in that goalie's grill. So I will give you the goaltender interference here. I will give you the face masking on Chad Hillebrand because he, like I said, grabbed, twisted, and pulled, and almost looked like he was freaking Garrett. What's that dude's name? The defensive end for the Browns. Myles Garrett.
Oh, Myles Garrett, yeah.
Turning that dude into Miles, is it Miles Rudolph? Rudolph from
Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph from Pittsburgh, and trying to put the helmet back on with a little more force than he took it off from.
Yeah.
So again, these 2 penalties I'm okay with. Or these 3 penalties, me, okay. These 2 penalties, me, okay. This one, a little sussy on, because could have been worse. I have no idea where this misconduct comes from, and we'll jump back into it and we'll look. Unless he said something to the refs like during the skate around afterwards. Because here's everybody. And then here comes Galambos a little late. And he takes on Webster. And Rizzo trying to separate. There's one more Western player to come in here. Hilson Dagger just waiting, taking an opportunity, grabs Webster, throws him to the ice. So we'll back up a little bit. We'll look at one of the live views to see. Got that one a little bit further.
A little more.
Too far. Yeah, it's right next to me. Okay. Nope, not far enough. Here we go. Hilson Dagger does not get a penalty, which maybe he could have earned one too here. Wait, is he gone? So I think that in that area maybe is where Galambos earns his game misconduct. Because where'd my mouse go? Hang on. Where'd it go? There it is. I found it. Okay.
I think
there it is. Watch Hilson Dagger come in here and just rip Webster just straight to the ice. And shoop.
Come here. That was straight out of the WWE right there.
Is you sit there and you wait till I let you up.
I mean, I can understand the misconduct though of waiting and then coming in and escalating the situation further.
All right. I want one look at of it in real time from the beginning. This is close enough. Nope. Damn it. I knew it was close. And then where'd my mouse go again? Hang on. Ow! Stab it. There it is. Please. Okay, here we go.
I am so tripped out.
This is in full time. Again, I think the goaltender interference is a little soft, and if this is the moment there, if it stops there, it's 2 roughings and a goaltender interference. Western should be on the power play.
So I think they have it under control. I mean, is under
There's
control, but
nothing
then
under control.
the
And yeah, he
face
does
mask
skate
happens,
around the ref
and
and
then he
get in there.
comes in late. That's, I think, where the misconduct came in.
It could be. And then Hilson Dagger's the last man in, and he grabs Webster and sits him down.
That was a great move, though. Not gonna lie.
Oh, it was a fantastic move. All right, so now that we've done that, and I might be angering some Western people here, and I don't care. Like, I think a lot of the only one that I didn't really understand or see clearly is the game misconduct, and it could very well be that he does skirt around the ref and almost make contact with the referee to get into the tussle that has already occurred. And it's just a 10-minute game misconduct. So not the end of the world, but you would like to eliminate that one. The biggest issues I have is this roughing here, because we clearly see the stick go up into the face mask of Hillebrand.
Mm-hmm. Well, so wait. So Hillebrand, it says game misconduct for him.
Yes.
But then there were 2 game misconducts.
No, there was 1 game misconduct and a misconduct.
Okay.
Galambos just had to sit in the box for 10 minutes.
Hopefully he had a TV.
And he was able to return to the game. Chad was removed from the game, the rest of the game.
So, yeah, because you were saying Galambos had a game misconduct, but I was like...
I think I might have misspoke, but it's just a misconduct. So...
Okay, so, yeah, then that makes sense.
Here's a couple things that I think got missed. Rizzo is the only one that I see throw a clear punch. And it's after his helmet is ripped off, but he throws a legit punch. And I think he could have gotten a penalty for fighting, because a punch thrown may be considered fighting. Penalty, disqualification. Now, a lot of players, here's what I literally think could have happened. I think you could have given the original 2 roughing. You could have given Luke Granger the 2 minutes for goaltender interference. You get the face masking penalty on Hillebrand and the game misconduct, because face masking may be assessed at the discretion of the referee. It was a rather violent removal of the face helmet. I will give you that.
He wanted his head inside his helmet.
Yes. There was what I would consider to be butt ending from number 8. And if you don't want to say it's butt ending because he catches him mostly with the glove, but it is the end of the stick. And also with that rule is you don't actually have to make contact while butt ending. You just have to make a motion of, and it is still essentially the same. So where is it? Hang on.
No, I was thinking spearing, but butt ending is
essentially it's the spearing of the
right
other end.
Yeah.
Spearing is usually done with the blade of the stick. Butt ending is literally done with the top of the stick. So you could have gotten here. A player shall not butt end an opponent. A butt end is when a player uses the shaft of the stick above the hand to jab an opponent. Butt ending includes all cases in which butt end gesture is made regardless of whether or not contact occurs. It is a major in a game misconduct or disqualification at the discretion of the referee. They literally reviewed, this was like a 20-minute process, or 15-minute process.
That was one of the first things that I noticed too, was the stick. Even before you said it, you could see the butt end of the stick.
Yeah. And if you don't want to call that, you Contact to the head.
It's to his head. Yeah, it's to his head.
Contact to the head could have still been called. And again, that's another semi-subjective thing, but a player shall not make direct contact for any direction with an opposing player's head or neck area in any matter, including but not limited to with the shoulder, stick, elbow. A hit resulting in contact with an opponent's head where the head was the main point of contact is not permitted. What did he hit him with? The stick or his hand. Possibly an elbow, because he was trying to throw an elbow in there too. Literally should have been a major and a major and a game misconduct or disqualification at the discretion of the referee.
And I mean, it's kind of lucky that the knob on the stick or whatever wasn't smaller, because it could have gone through and just straight up stabbed him in the eye.
Yeah,
because he's got a cage
in the mouth or in the nose. Like, he could have got hit in a number of ways.
But, yeah, and he's got the cage because it could have gone through there.
So this one I'm not entirely happy with. Rizzo throws a punch at the back of Hillebrand's head.
I did see another punch in there from a Western player.
I literally
don't know who it was.
Here's how I literally think this should have been called. And it's going to reference, let me go back to, I think we're done with this, but
this button. You can do it.
There. Literally, they could have called what the NHL ref called. You could have given the two roughings. If you don't want to say that it was a butt ending or a head to the contact to the head, which it was fucking either one of them, if not both, all 5 skaters on either team get a game misconduct. And I think a lot more people would have been happy with that than the nonsense that they called when 2 players. Now, granted, Hillebrand does not receive a penalty. And neither does.
He was on the sheet. Yeah, Went didn't receive a penalty. I was like, Hillebrand definitely was on the sheet.
Not Hillebrand. Hilsendagger and Went do not receive penalties. The penalties go to Granger, Chad, and Zach. And then 3 penalties. Essentially, it's 3 players aside, but the majority and the most egregious penalties were given to Western, which I think there was a way to even that out. And I still think the refs did a piss poor job of, 1, explaining this. 2, they had plenty of time to look back at that and see it. And I noticed most of these things in the first review of it when I sat down and looked at it. Now, I've looked at it a lot more than they apparently did. And I tried to do it from as unbiased of a position as I could. And you might be saying, well, yeah, but you're only adding penalties to Denver. I think they got the majority of the penalties right against Western. The only one that I'm not entirely sure of is the game misconduct to Galambos. And if it's because he was like 5th man in, okay, cool.
Misconduct.
Yes.
Not game misconduct.
Sorry, the misconduct to Galambos, if he was like the 5th man, 6th man in to the tussle and just kept it going, because there is a penalty for continuing a fight or continuing an action once it's deemed to be over, or the refs have directed players back to their bench or back to whatever area and you refuse to go. So I can see those penalties. Those penalties somewhat make sense to me. The one that doesn't, but how easily Denver got off does not make sense to me. And Western does a really good job of, I think, limiting them to 1 goal. And it was at the start of the second period, which they then tried to challenge for goaltender interference, which was waved off because Rowe was outside of the crease, so they deemed it a good goal. But Western fought and clawed their way back the entire game. You know, they didn't necessarily let it affect them too much as far as how they played their game. And really, they were down 1-2 goals the whole night. Like, they were just fighting to get back within a goal, fighting. They won the 3rd period. They get it to overtime, and there's a play in the overtime goal, and Sam is trying to keep Rizzo wide. He makes a great play with his stick at the same time that Cam is trying to do like a sweeping poke check, and the puck is already pushed away from Rizzo, and unfortunately Cam like kind of pushes it back towards him, and it ends up in front of him and behind him and around him and in the net, and it's just kind of an unfortunate play for Cam. The puck was already kind of disrupted from him, but honestly, it's the most satisfied I've been about a Western overtime loss in since I can remember, and it was just because of the effort of the team and the constant fight, really all weekend, and their ability to be resilient and to fight back, and really just the fact, like the play, and in my opinion, the non calls or the missed calls that could have been called.
I I would be I'd be curious because like I've said before, I do play trivia with a CCHA ref, but I'd be curious to know what goes on in those discussions. And if you're reviewing it for as long as you said, you should be able to get it right. Now, yeah, if you're roughing a high school game or a youth game and you just have to make things in the moment and try to remember everything that you've seen, yeah, it's difficult. You don't have that ability for replay. But if you can go back and look at that, I don't know what you're doing. And it was the same way at the end of the WCHA, and it's been the same thing with the NCHC. And there's no transparency in what the officials are doing, and I think that's um unless they have unless the NCHC has some website that explains exactly why the refs made the calls that they have, we don't know, and they need to, because you look at all the major professional leagues. NBA has it, NHL has it, NFL has it, Major League Baseball has it, unless Angel Hernandez wants to protest and say it's racist against him. But I mean, there's all these different mediums that they can use to relay to the public why things were called or why they were not called. And I think the NCHC should be a pioneer for it, but the NCAA might say, no, you can't do this because it's not in college football. It's not in college basketball. It's just like the rules analysts.
Yeah, but if we're gonna say that though, then there's a lot more that happens in basketball, football, hockey, baseball that doesn't happen in the other sports anyway. Like hockey, you're drafted, your rights are owned by a professional team when you come in as a freshman. Football, you have to play at least 3 years
3 years.
before you can enter the draft. Basketball, you can now enter the draft after playing 1 year, but then you can also pull yourself out of the draft, and as long as you don't have an agent, then you can come back to college basketball. And
Yeah.
baseball, you can be drafted, choose to not accept your draft, go back into the draft for the next year, and potentially be drafted again. Soccer is similar to hockey in that your draft rights can be obtained, but you don't necessarily have to go straight to the team. I learned that recently with a couple of the Western soccer players who were drafted in the last draft but came back and played soccer this year. So none of the sports operate in any function similarly or under the same guise of rules or under the same expectations um, as any of the others. You know, the NIL deal benefits football players the most. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's completely misunderstood by probably 99% of the viewing public uh, as far as what the hell NIL means or how it's used or whether or not the schools have anything to do with it or not. And it's a mess. The whole thing is a mess. Is it good
It,
for
it
the players? Absolutely. I think it does benefit them. But when you have coaches coming out and saying it costs 1.5 million to bring in a quarterback, you're blurring that line of what the NIL actually means and what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to benefit both the players and the community as a whole.
And we've had discussions around here with the NIL, just with University of Minnesota, and they've laid it out very clearly as to what that is on the radio, because they're former athletes and people connected with the program, and they're not pulling any punches. They're like, yeah, these athletes aren't getting like anything. We have to have a collective. But I think you kind of proved my point where it's not necessarily the conference that's messing this up. It's the NCAA as a whole.
I mean,
And
yes and no. I mean, there's a certain amount of anonymity that exists amongst the conferences. None of the conferences play under the same rules. I mean, they do. They play under the college hockey rule book,
yeah,
but
rule book, but
but there's no determination as to are you going to do. It's up to the conference to decide
but
whether or not they do 3-on-3 overtime or 5-on-5 overtime. It's up to the conference to decide whether or not they're going to do a shootout after the overtime. It's up to the conference to determine how they do their point system. It's nothing is standardized across college sports under your all under other than you're all under the umbrella of the NCAA, who was meant to be a money storing machine that would benefit the universities and distribute wealth because it's a nonprofit organization that was meant to protect the amateur rights of the college student athlete, which it does a piss poor job of.
but again, that's to my point. If they were trying to do that, they should standardize every league. They should, like, every conference. They attempt to run it like a professional league in the sense, but they're just gaining money for their own benefit. And to me, you need to go. Well, I even witnessed it in the difference between Division 1 and Division 3 tennis. Division 1 tennis, I would look at scores and I'm like, well, this makes zero sense. Like, how does this team win 4-2 versus we have to play all 9 matches? And so, like, my conference, we had to play all 9 matches, and even the tournament was different. So you had 3 doubles, 6 singles. We'd win match 7-2, whatever, 8-1. Our women's team made it to nationals, and I'm like, well, that score just doesn't make sense because not all 9 matches were played. And it was like, oh, well, this team was going to win. You don't know that. They didn't reach the majority. It was just ridiculous watching it. And I really do not like the NCAA.
Yeah. But I mean, like I said, I think it's all weird. It's all jacked up. You hear it in every sport. Nothing seems to be right or accurate. So who knows? Who knows? But I know Western fans are kind of sick of seeing Denver get some kind of special treatment or things just kind of be suspicious in the way that they're handled when Denver's in town. Last year it was the phantom head contact against Poland that was a major, and then
Yeah.
Carl decides to try and get a second major called on Poland later in the game with a review, which the equipment failed, so they couldn't review it for a second potential major on Poland, which would have been a game misconduct for him or some nonsense. Uh, and then to have this happen once again against Denver, it puts a bad taste in the fans' mouth. It puts even the coaching staff, whether or not they say it or not, because they can't say it. due to repercussions both from the NCAA or the conference. You know, we're kind of seeing that in football. Like, there's people who think that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are going to be fined for their comments about reffing. Well, guess what? I'm not tied to any of those, so I could say that the reffing fucking sucked, and some of their decisions make zero sense.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
refing at all levels makes zero sense. They want to control the game, but only to a point. They want to let shit go until it gets to a point where they fucked up and they can't control the game now. So then they crack harder and shit like that happens. And it just, the retaliation is not equal to what would have happened, could have happened had they kept a lid on the game or called the game from the moment the puck dropped.
and I will say this: reffing in real time isn't necessarily easy, and yes, you are going to screw up. Um, but at the collegiate, I don't know what they have at the USHL level, but at the collegiate and any of the pro levels with video review, you shouldn't get it wrong. And at the collegiate level with the refs with the microphones, you should be able to explain it. So I would actually find it very interesting to sit down with the head of officiating or somebody from the NCHC and be like, what are you guys doing here? Because you're leaving fans in the dark. And there's so much inconsistency week to week of what's a penalty and what's not, that we don't even, what we thought we knew the rules of the game were, we don't know what they actually are. And the problem is with a conference like the NCHC, you have three Minnesota schools, or two Minnesota schools, sorry. North Dakota, which is basically Minnesota, that's why I said three. Two Colorado schools, a Michigan school, and then Ohio and Nebraska. But 6 out of the 8 teams are from states that hockey is their lifeblood. They know the rules, they know what they should be. And when the refs are making calls that make zero sense, there needs to be an explanation of why they're making them, because you can't just be like, "Yep, that's what they called,"
Yeah.
and move on from that.
And I get that, you know, shit happens fast, and they're not full time refs because nothing has full time refs. The NFL doesn't even have full time referees. But again, when you spend 20, 15, 20 minutes looking at a play, and I can sit there in 5 minutes using not even potentially the same replays that they're using generic ass busted cameras from 1910, and go, well,
No, that's you. That's at UMD.
that dude just got butt ended, and if not butt ended, punched in the head, and that's at least contact to the head, because we've been called for contact to the head on softer shit when a 6'7" guy happens to skate past a 6 foot guy and accidentally bump him, but his head's at fucking elbow height, so it's elbowing and or contact to the head, and now we're sitting with a major because our dude happened to brush against the other dude. Like, just make it make sense. Just
Oh,
I
that's
shouldn't have to review things and look up the rule book and be like, that's clearly that. Like, those two things are clearly the same thing. How did you not see it? And I saw it in 5 seconds. And you had
that
10 minutes to look at it.
that well, and that's exactly what I was saying. It was, I mean, they have the review process, they have whatever. You should know the rule book. You should. If you're going to be refing at this high of level, how about you actually know what you're calling? And you said it too, and I said it. It's tough in the moment, but when you're able to go back and look at it, then yeah, you can pick out everything. And especially plays like that. Like, yeah, you might get a tripping wrong. You might get a hooking wrong. As a fan, am I going to be happy about it? No, but I've also refed. I understand it. It looks like that. It's in the moment of play. Perfect. You're not reviewing it. A play like this in a situation like this, where you have to review it to make sure you get quote unquote every call correct, you can't screw that one up.
No.
And they blew it. They blew it by a mile.
Yeah. And again, I think they got the Western penalties right, but I think they messed up on a lot too. All right, I got to take baby upstairs, so we need to wrap this bad boy up. Next week, we have a special announcement for next week. We will actually be live Monday at 9 o'clock to accommodate a very special guest. Former Western captain Chris Frank, who played in the final years of the CCHA, or just before the final years of the CCHA, is actually going to be joining us next Monday at 9 o'clock Eastern instead of Tuesday. There will be no Tuesday show. But I'm super excited for this conversation with Chris. I think Mike is semi excited about it just because he's seen the YouTube video that we talked about with Wally. And if you don't know that video, just type in Chris Frank hit to Google into YouTube and enjoy 30 seconds of human destruction derby, because that is what that clip is.
That is a full-on yard sale.
But we have him coming on next week. Super excited for it. So if there's some questions that you would like us to ask Chris, please make sure to either send them to either of our Twitter handles or the page Twitter handle. And if you send us the page Twitter handle, it'll probably be the best spot because they'll be easier to find and not get mixed in with our normal crap. If you want to use, I don't know, hashtag AskChrisGHFS, we might be able to find them quicker that way too by sorting through that. I don't know how that's going to work, but we'll try it. I've never
done that, so
we'll see if that works. But so yeah, Ask Chris GHFS will be the hashtag for that. But also tag, the Twitter handle for the page or our personals, or email them to our email. The email is at goalhornsandfightsongs@gmail.com. The Twitter handle, if you haven't followed it, is scrolling across the bottom of the screen at this very moment. So there it is. That's it. I got to go. I got a sick baby. Till the next episode, which is Monday at 9 o'clock, not Tuesday. Monday, December 18th at 9 o'clock Eastern. That's when we'll be live again. I got a sick baby. Okay, bye.